Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is John and this is your Modern Tech Breakdown. Today I've got a story about the potential buyer of TikTok. Let's jump into it. All right, so here is a Bloomberg article reporting that Oracle, Blackstone, and Andreessen Horowitz are the group of investors that seem to be in line to win the TikTok sweepstakes if a sale does eventually get approved. I think Oracle is there because they've provided infrastructure for TikTok's US operations and would continue to provide security assurances for user data. And obviously Blackstone is probably providing M&A expertise and financial backing for the deal. But what I find most interesting is the involvement of Andreessen Horowitz, which is the venture capital firm founded by Marc Andreessen and Ben Horowitz. And I'm reminded of Marc Andreessen's tour of the podcast circuit earlier this year when he spoke out about censorship of social media companies. Here's a clip.
The problem with misinformation is like, is it the truth or not? What do we know from 800 years or whatever Western civilization? It's that, there's only a few entities that can determine the truth on every topic. There's God, there's the king. We don't have those anymore. And the rest of us are all imperfect and flawed. And so the idea that any group of experts is going to sit around the table and decide on the truth is, deeply anti-Western and deeply authoritarian.
So I think it's fair to say that Marc has a pretty wide open view on free speech. He's in favor of it and thinks that it's important. And in the same interview, he also talked about Mark Zuckerberg's evolution on this topic and specifically the role the government played over the last 4 or 5 years. Take a listen.
And then really critically, he talked about on Rogan, and these companies all went through this. In this last, especially 5 years, you had the government coming at you. That's the really, stinky end of the pool, where, the government was, in my view, illegally exerting, just in flagrant violation of the First Amendment and federal laws on speech and coercion and conspiracy, forcing these companies to engage in activities, that, again, in some cases they may have wanted to do, but in other cases they clearly didn't want to do and felt like they had to do.
So after listening to that, I'm optimistic about the future of TikTok if Marc Andreessen is part of the ownership team that takes over the US business. I've never been a TikTok user and I don't think I ever will be, but TikTok seems to have a reputation as being the most censored social media platform. So getting this ownership team in place seems like a positive development to me. And assuming the reporting from Bloomberg on this is accurate, I think the only major question remaining is whether or not a sale is actually going to occur, as I'm sure the negotiations for TikTok are wrapped up in the broader trade negotiations between China and the United States. So it's too early to say for sure if this deal is going to happen, but perhaps we will get a better TikTok out of it. But that's all I've got on this topic for now. As always, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.